as you grow, you're dealing with more trades, you're dealing with more homes, you're dealing with more customers, you're dealing with more permits, you're dealing with more red tape. And so you have to kind of look at it and say, is it worth it to do that much more work at 8% or get really good at what I'm doing with the volume that I'm at and make 10 to 12%? And the dollar numbers could be the same. So if you're building, let's say 300 homes at 6 to 8% and you want to go to 500, you could be building 500 homes at 8% or 300 homes at 10 to 12% and be making the same number of dollars.
Welcome to the Builder Straight Talk podcast with your host, Michael Creasa. Get the unfiltered truth from the trenches of construction, real estate, and funding. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.
Do you remember the first home you built? Before there was a foundation, before there was a single wall, you could see what no one else could. In your mind, you walked through that home a million times until one day that vision became a reality. And standing in front of you wasn't just a house, it was a home. And inside, a happy family beginning a new chapter of their lives. You did that. So you built another, and then another. And before long, it wasn't just about building homes anymore. People were counting on you to get the job done. Because as your business grew, so did the expectations. More homes, more people counting on you, more responsibility, more risk, and somewhere along the way, something changed. The business you created to build the life you wanted started demanding more and more of that life. So what do? Do you work harder? Do you build more? Do you hire more people? Or maybe there comes a point when becoming a better builder is no longer the option. Maybe you have to become a better business person. My guest today is Emma Wildermuth, president of Shinn Group, and home building is quite literally part of Emma's DNA. Her parents, Chuck and Emma Shinn, didn't just advise builders, they helped write some of the foundational books on home building management and profitability that National Association of Home Builders still uses today. And Emma grew up surrounded by those lessons. Today, she carries that legacy forward, helping more builders build companies that are not only bigger, but better. In our conversation, we explore why building more doesn't necessarily mean making more money, how you can make the leap from being a great builder to becoming a great business person, why systems, people, and accountability become critical as you grow, and so much more. Because knowing how to build a great home and knowing how to build a great home building company are two very different things. Hello, my friend. I'm Michael Creasa, and this is Builder Straight Talk. Our mission is simple, to help you build a better business, and a better business begins with Sound Capital. And speaking of sound, pretty pleased with your mouse? Hit subscribe, like, and share so more builders can find out what we're doing here. Simple click of your mouse, like I said, pretty please subscribe, like, and share. And without further ado, let's jump into this conversation with Emma Wildermuth. Well, Emma, I want to say welcome back. It's almost like deja vu. I feel like we've done this once before. So first of all, I'm excited to have you on the call. I know there's so much mischief that you and I can get into because you have such a wealth of knowledge. So let's dispense with the hello, how are you? But I'll ask it anyway. How you doing today, Emma?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back and taking a round two at this conversation. It was a great time the first time, so let's do it again.
Okay, well, we've raised the bar, if you will, because you know what to expect. So now I've got to exceed those expectations. I'll make the questions tougher. But the first thing, give our audience a bit of the backstory. Who the heck is Emma Wildermuth? Emma, what do you do?
My name is Emma. I've been in the home building industry my entire life. I was born into it. My parents, Chuck and Emma, basically started in the home building industry in the late 60s and early 70s. My mom actually wrote the accounting book for the home building industry, either while she was pregnant with me or right before she got pregnant with me. I grew up here in Denver, Colorado. Love Colorado, the outdoors. I have 3 dogs, a 17-year-old Chihuahua. He's my pride and joy right now. And 3 amazing kids with my husband, Brian, and he came with 2 amazing boys. So together we have 5 kids, and they are our whole life. And then we spend a lot of time with home builders and builder groups, education. Our field of expertise is management. So we love working with home builders and helping them learn how to understand how to manage their organization in a way that makes them profitable so that they're sustainable over time. It's not just about a, one time make a lot of money. It's really about how do we make this company consistent, we make it effective, we make it efficient, and we can be sustainable over time, not only for ourselves and our organization, but for the communities that we serve.
So before we leave the shallow waters here, I need to do a shout out to your husband, Brian, because I met that knucklehead probably 15, 20 years ago. And how this all came to be full circle is I met him again last year at a National Association of Home Builders event, and I think it was in Denver. And
Yeah.
out of the crowd, this guy comes screaming, "Creasa!" And I'm thinking, okay, terrorist, I owe somebody money, uh, ex-wife, I'm not sure, maybe. And it turned out to be Brian. And
Yeah.
like without skipping a beat, it was like he was in a time capsule. It was the same guy that I remembered from 15 years ago. And it was so nice to catch up. And then he told me the story of what was happening, and more importantly, about what you are doing with Shinn Group. And I thought, wow, this is synchronicity working in overdrive.
Yeah, yeah, it was very cool. He was so excited to see you. He's like, "You have to come meet my friend. You have to come meet my friend."
Yeah, at that point, I felt like, am I his only friend? Is that why there's so much enthusiasm here? But let's talk about the Shinn Group, because this
Yeah.
company has a pedigree, and it goes back to your mom and your dad. So let's go to the genesis. What actually was it that inspired them to start this company?
Wow. Well, I have to go back to the '60s. So, my mom and dad met in graduate school, and my mom was one of just a few women getting a master's degree at that point in time, and my dad and her were in the same accounting class, and she was studying accounting, and he was not so good at accounting. And he was a pretty cute guy, and he needed a tutor, so my mom's like, "All right." So she helped him pass accounting, and eventually, they got together. They dated by mail for 2 years because she's from Panama and he was from Washington, DC, so they dated by mail for a few years, and their relationship sustained time. They came back and got married, and my dad was looking for a job, and at that point in time with the draft, he was not able to find a job because there was some paperwork that was messed up. I don't know the whole story exactly detail for detail, but regardless, he wasn't able to get a job, and the NHB was the only place that was willing to give him a job. My grandfather knew somebody over there, and they said, "Give this guy an opportunity." So my dad came in as the assistant to the economist. I think Mike Sumacrist was his name, and ever since then, he's fallen in love with the home building industry. Chuck and Emma were instrumental in starting the first cost of doing business study that the NAHB did, and that's when they really realized how inefficient and just inexperienced home builders were with business. One of the participants to the study brought a box of checkbooks to Chuck and Emma and said, "Here you go." And they said, "Well, what is this?" And he said, "That is my check. That is my accounting system. I open up a checking account for every home I build. And if there's money left in the account when I'm done, I won. If I had to put money in the account in order to close the house, well, I guess I didn't." And they were like, wow, and there was no standardization. There was no, like, people were doing it just kind of willy-nilly. And that's when my mom was like, we need to organize this. And so she was instrumental in creating the job cost codes, the chart of accounts for the NHB. She wrote the first accounting book in the early '70s, like I mentioned, and then they came to work for University of Denver. They decided it was important to build homes to make sure that the things they were teaching in the classroom were actually working in the field. And so they used their home building company as kind of like a laboratory. In the '90s, they came to a place where they had to make a decision whether they fight through the savings and loan crisis or they follow their passion, because the person that was kind of doing the seminars was Lee Evans, and he was getting ready to retire. There was nobody to take his place. And so Chuck and Emma sat down together and they said, "You know what? Our passion is and always has been education. We crave problem solving. We want to go in and help builders become better builders and to help them be sustainable so that they're building homes for as long as they want to in a way that they can still be with their families, in a way that they still are earning an income, in a way that they can still provide to their employees and make a difference in their communities. And so in 1992, they started the Lee Evans Group, which eventually turned into the Shinn Group today.
What a story. Like, your dad was bad in math, but obviously he had an eye for figures because he married your mom. So
Yeah.
thought I'd throw that out there. Coming back to economics, small world. I just interviewed Robert Dietz,
Dietz, yeah.
who's a chief economist, and I got to tell you, I felt like I was going 7 rounds with a boxer, but I did hold my own. I asked intelligent questions, and when he peeled back what's happening in the industry today, like, great
Mhm.
jumping, you just got to shake your head. So your mom and dad, they were like on the cutting edge of what was happening.
Yeah.
The fact that you could even peel back a curtain and say, here's what's happening across the country economically, here's what the future is. So they are right on the cusp of this. How did you then get pulled into the mix?
That's a funny story. So my dad always says that home building's like a disease. Once you get it, you can't ever shake it. You're in it for life. Well, obviously, I was born into it. I always loved to play in the dirt and sit with the workers when my parents were building. I'd go and sit with the tile guy while he was tiling the tub and the bathroom and just sit there and listen to him and talk to him. My sisters and I would find every hiding space in every home that my parents built. My favorite part of home building, I just get goosebumps, is the framing stage because I love walking. First of all, I'm like a 12-year-old. I want to walk through every wall. I think that's the coolest thing in the world.
And
But ultimately, looking at this blank slate that doesn't have any walls up and being able to picture what is going to happen in this building, in this space, because I believe that home building isn't about building boxes, it's about building lives. And so when I walk into a home that's just framed, I start looking at, okay, this is where the kitchen is going to be, and this is where somebody's going to make their family meals. And this is a little kitchen nook, and this is where they're going to sit down and have their breakfast. And this is the family room where the families are going to sit together and watch movies together or play games together. They're going to celebrate holidays here. They're going to celebrate birthdays here. They're going to have memorials for loved ones that have passed. And life is going to happen in this space. And that's the part of home building that I fell in love with. I did get a degree in marketing and I did leave the home building industry for a few years. So I worked for a recruitment advertising agency. And then after my first daughter was born in 1999, my mom came to me and said, "Hey, guess what? I got an offer for you. I'll pay you the same amount that that company's going to pay you. And you can bring your daughter with you instead of taking her to daycare." Well, she got me on week 2 where I haven't put her down yet because I thought this was the most amazing human being in the entire world. And I left the company, the recruitment advertising company. I went to work for my parents and been there ever since.
your daughter's name is Emma as well?
Correct. Yes.
So, yeah, well, I think we giggled about this before. She's the fifth generation in the line.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Wow.
We do have a picture when she was a baby with my grandmother. So my great-grandmother was an Emma, my grandmother, my mom, me, and then Emmy. So that we do have a picture with all 4 generations together. It was a very special time, so I'm hoping that my daughter someday will get married and have a baby and have a little girl that she also names Emma. She said she would because she would break. She's like, she and I both are on the same page. We're like, if we don't name our kid Emma, we're going to curse the baby. So,
What happens if it's a boy, Amarid? I guess we'll have to work on,
well, if it's a boy, then it doesn't matter. But if
yeah,
she has a
okay.
girl, then the girl would be cursed if she doesn't have an Emma name.
Gotta keep up the tradition. Wow. So when you
Yes.
came, so it's now the Shinn Group, you're there.
Mhm.
And do your parents have hopes for you in terms of where you're going to go in the company? Or is your mom just excited about the fact that you're now a part of the company?
Well, I think they just liked having, at the very beginning, it was me and my sister Monica. We were both part of the organization. She has since moved on and is with ECI Mark Systems. I have stayed with the organization. And now that my parents are in their 80s, It's up to me to take over the organization and start really leading our organization. And one of the things that the vision I have is that Chuck and Emma created an incredible organization with so much knowledge, and it was just the two of them. There's no two people like Chuck and Emma in the world. Chuck was a very good mouthpiece. He's a very good critical thinker. He's a doer. He's a go-getter. And Emma is she's a very critical thinker, and she takes the time to really analyze, and she understands the numbers, and she really looks at how things fit together. And between the two of them, they were a complete package. I haven't found any other two people that function the way they do. And so what we are doing is we're looking at our organization as an organization. So we've got 5 different consultants that we've brought on board to help with our team to continue our education classes. We have a team of people here in the office that continue to work on fine-tuning and updating all of our materials. So we're always looking at how we can make things better and continue to support the home builders in the way that Chuck and Emma would want us to.
So I haven't asked the obvious question, which is, what does the Shinn Group do?
Oh, so the Shinn Group, what we do is we help builders become profitable. We've been known as the profit doctor. Chuck was known as the profit doctor, but Emma was the one who was actually running the tools in the background. But what we do is we teach management principles that have been sustainable over time. So these are principles that they happen whether you're working on them or not. And if you're not focusing on them, they can impact you in a negative way. So what we'll do is we have a class called Managing for Profit. And what this does is it allows you to understand what management principles you need to have in order to run a successful organization. And it's almost like getting an MBA. I got my MBA right around COVID, just before COVID, and finished right after COVID. And what was interesting is I was like, I kind of know all of this stuff. I felt like I was like, isn't this like basic knowledge? Doesn't everybody know this stuff? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, duh, this is what we've been teaching builders for decades. But the cool part is it's fine-tuned for the home building industry. And it's fine-tuned to meet the specific needs of the private home builder. So we're talking to home builders in home builder language and talking about management principles that they can apply to their home building business the second they go home. And then we have a team of people that helps with coaching and consulting. Once they've taken those classes, they need somebody to help implement. And then we have a team of people to help them implement.
Being from Colorado, I think you'd appreciate this analogy. It would be like me walking into a sports store, winter sports
Mhm.
store, and I buy a Skidoo suit, one piece, but I'm a downhill skier. So yes, it's going to keep me warm, but it has nothing to do with the function that I need it to do, which is the versatility to be able to go around moguls and sticks and everything else. So I guess where I'm going with this, a business degree per se is a general thing. You've
Mhm.
taken it and honed it right down to something that is applicable to builders.
Correct. That's
So the
absolutely
next
correct.
question is, I think builders by their nature, do they understand the difficulty between defining a job versus a career? Or let me refine that, a job
Mhm.
versus a business. Because many of
Right.
them, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the evolution would be, I have a family member that brought me into the business, kind of like you. I get to
Mhm.
play on the construction site. Maybe somebody introduced me, something maybe I was curious about, but I had no experience. And somehow I'm getting into this building realm. And then the other thing that I've seen is you may have a bunch of guys, maybe you've got a framer and a plumber, and one day they say, hey, we can be doing this.
Uh-huh.
So they pool their resources and they build their first spec home together. And they take it to market, they sell it, they make some money, and they think, hey, this wasn't too bad. Wash, rinse, repeat. And slowly, this brotherhood of musketeers start becoming their own little entity, their own little company, if you will. And
Mhm.
then somebody needs to be the leader. And we
Yep.
can't be doing the things that we've done over and over again because we really don't have a plan. And if we want to scale this thing, then comes the realization we need to treat this like a business. Is that where
Right.
you come in? And partly what you do is educate them in how to run a business as opposed to a job that I go to.
Absolutely. That's 100%. You nailed it. That's exactly what we do. We help them understand how to make it from hey, this is just something I do. It's really fun. We make some decent money at it, but how do we make it a real entity, a real organization that can grow beyond us? I have a couple, like I have a builder that he actually just recently won the Young Guns Award with NHB. But what was really cool about him coming in is that he was doing just that. He's like, I can build a house and I can build it really well. And then I can build a second house and I can build it really well. But they don't understand what targets to aim for. So they don't know, hey, am I actually building the house in a way where I'm going to make money and continue to make money? Because sometimes you think you make money, but you really don't know. You're like the dollars, you make some dollars, but you don't understand how that works as far as the percentages go. And am I working towards the right target for creating a budget for building a home so that I come out with a win at the end? Do I understand what pitfalls I'm going to come into? Do I understand how to manage the field so that if I'm building multiple homes, how do I manage that process? How does the superintendent manage that process? Does the superintendent understand the business side as well? Because we do offer classes that educate the superintendent. So a lot of times they just send a superintendent out there and they go, okay, you manage these trades, but they don't understand the impact of their work in the field, which
I
is
think,
so cool.
yeah, sure. Emma, would part of the trap be, and especially if they're just starting out or they're
Mhm.
getting to the point where they're going to scale, you look at your bank account and you're enamored by the amount of zeros because the
Yeah.
nature of building, there's a lot of zeros involved there. And
Hmm.
accounts get conflated and you forget that this money is for this build, that money's for that build. This is not my money to spend.
Right.
And at the end of the day, um, I mentioned I had the interview with Robert Deitz, and the latest stat right now is I think it was 26% of the price of a home is tied up in red tape, governance, everything else. And if you don't realize that 26% of that chunk of money that you're making is not yours, and then on top of that, you're running at maybe a 10% margin,
Well, that's
there's
that's
trouble
a
to be
really good
had.
margin.
Yeah.
Well, depending if you're talking gross or net. Most builders are not making 10% net.
Wow.
Yeah.
That one has to
Mo
settle in there a bit. 10%.
Uh-huh.
So, you could almost argue that most of them have a job versus a business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because they think that the dollars are a lot, which is great. And we'll see a lot of builders that we have a couple builders that are like, I'm going for volume. We want to be the biggest builder. And their net profit is somewhere like 6 to 8%, let's say. Well, as you grow, you're dealing with more trades, you're dealing with more homes, you're dealing with more customers, you're dealing with more permits, you're dealing with more red tape. And so you have to kind of look at it and say, is it worth it to do that much more work at 8% or get really good at what I'm doing with the volume that I'm at and make 10 to 12%? And the dollar numbers could be the same. So if you're building, let's say 300 homes at 6 to 8% and you want to go to 500, you could be building 500 homes at 8% or 300 homes at 10 to 12% and be making the same number of dollars. And so chasing volume is a lot of times where you'll see builders kind of get into trouble, not necessarily trouble, but kind of get this mindset where volume is more important than profit because you see so many of the public builders, that's what they're going for. They're going for volume, volume, volume. But they operate their businesses so much differently than a private builder does.
It sounds like if I follow that logic that I wanna build more homes, make less money, it's almost like being at the circus and you watch the guy on the high wire, right? So you've got one guy who's really comfortable where he has, let's say, 30 feet in the air, no net underneath, but
Uh-huh.
this guy wants to be at 100 feet in the air, no net underneath. The impact's still gonna be the same,
Hmm.
and it just seems that there's a bigger benefit to be had to have a bigger margin. So
Correct.
is part of that ego, like, you have to take the ego out of the equation and get them to settle in on, let's go back to the beginning here. You're building a business. And I guess by
Mhm,
definition, let's look at McDonald's, for example. McDonald's is a business that is predicated upon systems. I can
mhm,
take anybody off the street. I can drop them at the fry machine. I can drop them at the burger counter. Here's how we do it consistently
yep,
every time.
yep,
So as part of what you do at the Shinn Group, taking them by the hand and saying, okay, let's look at what you have right now. Let's unpack
mhm,
what that, as your mom had, she had a business in a box. Here's all the checkbooks. So part of what you do then, I come to you and I say, Emma, I want to grow my business. Help me. So tell me, what's that process? But let's go back to the beginning here. Your ideal client would be what? And when they come to you, what are they looking for?
Our ideal client is somebody who wants to have an organized organization that is profitable. That could be, a lot of we used to say anywhere from like 50 to 100 units per year, but what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of people in that 10 to 20 units that really want to get good at running their business. And they really want to understand how they either can maintain a business at 10 to 20 units and be profitable at it, or they want to grow their business and continue to be profitable in it. How do I grow my business and sustain a profit? And then how do I get set up for the next step? What do I need to do? How do I get organized enough? Where does my profitability need to be so I can sustain growth? Because growth is expensive, right? So you need to be profitable in order to go to that next level. So if you're at your 10 to 12% net profit, which is what our target is 10 to 12% net profit. So now that you're wanting to grow to that next level, you might have to sacrifice some margin because you don't have the volume in your operate to cover your operations for that next jump. But you can't do that if you're not profitable. If you're at 6% and then you grow to that next level and you're pulling people into your organization, you have to gear up to that volume to cover the operational costs. So that's what we help you do. We help you understand, how do you get systematic at it? Like you said, you come in, this is our system, this is what we do. We have one builder that, they were talking in their builder group and they started talking and they're like, nope, we don't do it that way. Nope, we don't do it that way. We do it this way. This is how we do it. And every single person in that organization said the same thing. Because I talked to their salespeople. I had a subgroup with their salespeople, their sales and marketing people. I had a subgroup with their purchasing and production managers. And then I had the group for the primary members, the owners of the owners and leadership team. Every single group said the same thing. That's not how we do it. This is how we do it. That's not how we do it. This is how we do it. And they're profitable. Even when the market gets rough, they're still working to maintain their volume so they can continue to keep their organization in place. But it's because they're very disciplined about the way they run their systems.
It tells me there's three things in play there: that they've got communication, they got a culture, and a vision. And
Mhm.
everybody at that company knows exactly what those three things are. Is
Yep.
that part of what you do then too when you're
Mhm.
educating the builders?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. You can't do it without having somebody understand where the organization is going.
Have you found that for the builders that want to scale, they're at that point, you mentioned the 10, 0 to 10, and they want to take that now from maybe 10 to 20 or 25. Is there a commonality between builders that want to scale? Like, is there something that triggers that growth? They're uncomfortable. There's something bigger that they're trying to achieve. Is there anything in common?
They have a drive in them, and they have the decision that nothing's going to keep them from moving forward. And one of the things that I've noticed is, sitting in some of my builder groups, because that's where I get to hear kind of people just sitting and being very natural, having natural conversations about where they are in their business. It's when they decide they're not going to allow excuses to determine their direction for their organization. They're they understand that there's hard things out there and there's things that are outside of their control, but they're not going to allow it to limit their vision and their desire to move forward. Because a lot of times, like, You could say, "You know what? Our market today is really hard. We can't sell any homes." But somebody in your market is selling homes. So somebody has decided that that's just an excuse, but they're gonna figure out a way to still sell homes because there's still people in your market that wanna buy homes. Well, it's just really expensive to do that. Well, they figured out a way how to manage the process, or they figured out how to work with their trade partners to figure out how to do it better, do it less expensive, make sure they're talking to their client, to their buyers to figure out, are we putting in only what you want? Or are we putting in things that you're getting for free essentially because you couldn't care less if you had it or you didn't have it? It's a nice to have, but you wouldn't be willing to pay for it plus my margin, right? So they have decided that excuses don't define them, that they will take what they can control and they'll work within that realm to continue to move forward.
Is part of what you do help them set their sights, if you will? So here's the home that I'm building, and I think this is what my buyers want. And so the question becomes, well, how do you know that's what they want? Well, because everybody else is doing the same thing.
Right.
So there's many reasons why we're in this mess right now in terms of affordability of homes. Builders are building homes that are still super big, let's say 2,000 square feet, but today's buyer doesn't need all that room. And somehow we have to come up with a number, a magic number that is affordable, but still, I'm not looking at the word luxury. That's not what I mean to say. But it enamors the buyer in such a way that they feel like it's a home versus a box that they live in. Is part of what you do then helping the builder come up with that vision so they can identify what's going to work in their market? Or is that
Yeah,
something they
we
should know before they come to you?
no, well, I mean, it's something they should have at least spent some time thinking about. But working with with the coaches, we do work with them to kind of decide who is your buyer? Who are you building for? Does that buyer exist in your market? Does that buyer want these things? So we'll work with them and kind of go through those questions with them and help them identify those things with them. That is one of the things that our coaches will do with them. Absolutely.
Can we look at a case study? And I don't want you to name names or anything like that, but let's say a builder, because they have to take the ego out of the equation when
Yeah.
they're working with you, that thought they had everything dialed in. Yeah, yeah, we know exactly what we're doing. And then after they met with you, it's like, oh, jumping. We were in completely the wrong business.
Yeah, there's been several times where we've sat with a builder and they start to really think about what they're doing. I do have a builder where, he's like, "No, we're in this market because it's a good market and we believe in what they're doing." And I'm like, "But is your buyer paying for that? Are they paying for that with your margin included?" And then he ran the numbers against our targets and he was like, "No, the buyers are not willing to pay for that extra thing that we do." And so he's trying to figure out, how do I change what I'm doing? And it has to do with natural energy, thermo energy, and green energy. And the buyer that he's selling to isn't willing to pay. And it's like 10% more on his direct construction costs. And he's like, that's great. I'm glad that I'm offering that to them, but I'm paying for it and the buyer's not paying for it. So he's trying to evaluate, am I building the right product for my buyer? Am I in the right market for what I'm building? So he is going through an evaluation process on that and trying to find a market and build a home that may not have the thermo energy that he was using before.
Man, 10%.
Mhm.
Here's a little fun fact for you, Emma. I interviewed Scott Norman a few weeks back. He's the CEO of Texas Association of Builders. And this is something that aligned with what Robert had to say. And the latest stat now, especially in Texas, is that we talked about the 26%,
Mhm.
but here's the $1,000 increase in price takes 20,000 Texans out of the marketplace.
Mhm.
And I would think that would have to be a universal number across the board.
Oh yeah.
$1,000 increase eliminates 20,000 prospective buyers. I can't even imagine what a 10% hit would be unless the guy's looking at building, high end, and that's the market that he's catering to without
Yeah.
realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah, his market was kind of definitely a move-up market, so it wasn't the entry-level market, but still, it doesn't matter. It doesn't if your buyer's not willing to pay for it, why are you putting it in there? We have one builder that literally everything is optional, and he was there in one of our builder groups, and he would be like, "Okay." We'd be like, "So do you include that?" "Nope, that's not included." "Nope, that's not included." I mean, even to the point where there's no bathroom mirrors because they're like, "Our buyers don't care about us putting a mirror in there. They're gonna go to Hobby Lobby and buy a cute mirror and put it up themselves. They're not willing to pay me, the builder, what it costs me to buy that mirror, install it, and include my margin." And so they've realized their buyer is very price sensitive. And so they're building a home that is within the threshold of what their buyer can afford and still build a nice product. And so when I actually went out to go visit, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be interesting. I don't even know what these houses are gonna look like. There's gonna be nothing in there." And I walked in and they have these beautiful homes that are built so nice and they're the perfect size for their particular buyer. They're set in beautiful neighborhoods. Obviously they're smaller, they're closer together, but and the, density is a big deal, but somebody can buy a home and live in a home. And the purpose of what he's doing is him and his organization are building homes that people can afford so they can start building their lives. You got to start somewhere. And so he recognized that and took things out. And he's like, if they want it and they're willing to pay for it, plus my margin, they'll pick it.
You've mentioned your builder groups a number of times, and I'm equating this to a mastermind group. So correct me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong here. So you're putting a bunch of builders into a pool and saying, okay, kids, let's put our toys on the table and let's see if we can come up with a bigger game. Tell me more about the groups and the type of groups that you're doing. And does ego get in the way? Like, are builders that genuinely willing to share what's happening with themselves?
Oh my gosh, my builder groups, they're my favorite thing that we do. I could see why my parents got so addicted to going to builder groups because they're like my our builder groups are their best friends. It's an opportunity for builders to get together from non-competing markets. They are similar in size and maturity of their organization. They kind of have the same kind of thinking. And I tell people this all the time when they're applying for builder groups. Every builder group has their own personality, and it's so fun to see them. I have a couple that I started. I have one that is kind of brand new. They're smaller builders, but they're getting it all figured out, and they're so fun to watch and to watch them like get to know each other and trust each other. It takes like we do 2 builder groups a year, and it takes, like, 3 to 4, maybe sometimes 5 meetings before they're really kinda close, but once you see that transition and they start to really realize, "Oh, if I lay this on the table, I've got 7 other building companies," and they bring 2 to 4 people depending on the size of the group and the size of their organization, the leadership team, and each group decides what they can do, but I've got all of these other people that I can present my idea to, my problem to, my success to, and I'm gonna get feedback. And it's gonna be honest feedback because it doesn't influence them if they say something because they're just trying to help each other out. It is the coolest thing to see these builders and then develop relationships over time. We have one builder group, they literally borrow each other's plans and take them to each other's markets and are able to fine tune them for their buyers. But the ideas they get from each other are just inspirational. And during COVID, these groups were essential. It was more I kinda call it like group therapy sometimes. During COVID, it was essential for them to have other builders that were similar in size, similar in, vision for where they were going. Some builder groups are like, "We just wanna continue to work on margin." Some are like, "We wanna do margin and units." Some are like, "We just are trying to figure it out." Some are still immature in their business cycle. Some are super but having that opportunity to talk to people and kind of share your grievances and be like, I'm not the only one. And now I know I have somebody else that I can pull your head together with my head and we can solve this problem together.
Yeah, we shouldn't undervalue that one at all, Emma. The latest stat I heard that builders are like the number 2 in terms of suicide after dentists. So this is not an easy job. The fact that you've got other shoulders to cry on and to share with, that's worth its weight in gold.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's very special and we always have I go to almost all of the builder group meetings and then we also have one of our coaches or consultants go. So we have two people at every builder group meeting.
So help me understand. So they meet physically twice a year and
Mhm.
they meet at your location or they have their own location. And then what do they do during the remainder of the year? Are they doing Zoom calls do they call one another? How does that part unfold?
It depends on each group. Each group decides on what they want to do. So, we have one group that meets every month for an hour and 3 times a year in person. We have most of our groups meet 2 times a year, and then they have, like, an email chain that they send back and forth, and those are amazing. I usually am CC'd on those, and I watch the communication go through on that. They'll have be like, "I'm hiring a new superintendent. Can you guys send your what are you guys looking for in your superintendent? And what are how many, whatever." And so then all of a sudden, you see all of these email chains coming through to answer the question. We have some builder groups that will do subgroups. So that just means that they have their staff meet. Purchasing and production managers, for example, they'll also meet in person. Sales and marketing people will meet quarterly or twice a year via Zoom calls. So it's really dependent on what the group is wanting to do. I have another group who's like, we want to meet in person twice a year. And in between each of those meetings, we want to have a Zoom call. So they'll meet halfway through the year on a Zoom call. So it just is very customized.
Is it broken down by geography? How did they determine where they're going to meet?
So the way they determine where they're going to meet is generally somebody from the group will offer to host at their location. So we do all of the facilitation. The host company literally just recommends a hotel, a restaurant, and then they provide a tour. So we coordinate all of the transportation, but they have to figure out what homes that their communities they want the group to visit. And that's it. We make it super simple. We have an amazing person here in our office. Her name's Renee. She plans all of our meetings and she does a fantastic job. But we take care of all the stuff. They just get to come and say, "Hey, welcome to my meeting."
Oh,
And we
cool. So
usually do it at a hotel, and so they don't even have to have it on site or anything.
they're actually touring one another's homes and then
Mhm.
offering feedback and
Yep.
suggestions?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk
Yep.
about taking ego out of the equation. You've created quite the culture if they're that
Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
That's
It's very cool.
that's a testament to you that you've created this place where they feel secure enough and they trust one another enough to open up. Tell me about the bigger picture. So, how does somebody get involved with the Shinn Group, and what is it that you offer? Like, is there a big yearly event that they go to, or quarterly events? Break that down for me. And then, what do they experience when they go there?
You can get involved with us in any way. We have several different ways. You can get involved with us as, just through coaching. We do offer coaching packages. So if you're looking for somebody to just help you stay accountable, I found over my many years of doing volunteer work while I was a mom with my kids in school that if somebody says we're going to meet in 2 weeks or in a month, it's amazing how quickly you get the things you promised you'd have done right before the meeting. So we do offer those coaching opportunities to help you stay accountable to somebody. A lot of times when you're a leader or the president or owner of an organization, it's pretty lonely. Nobody holds you accountable. You're accountable to yourself. So that's one of the things that we do offer. And the guys that are taking advantage of that are really, really enjoying that piece. Also, you can become involved by attending one of our classes. Our managing for profit class is the number one class that everybody takes. It's the best place to start. You get a feel for it's a low investment and you get a feel for who we are, who our team is, and what is the philosophy that we follow and we teach from From there, that's where you can get into builder groups. And then we do have an annual conference that we do every year. It's the Executive Summit. This is one of my most favorite classes because we will pull in a speaker, keynote speaker, not necessarily from the industry. We've had Stephen M.R. Covey. We had a gentleman, Chris Laping, this year. We've had The Great Game of Business in the past. We had, I don't remember what their names were. He came in, he was a military guy. He came and did a whole presentation on operations and systems and all those things, but really amazing speakers. And then we kind of take in different concepts that the home builders are working on. This last year, we focused primarily on leadership. It was funny. A builder came up to me afterwards and he goes, "If you'd have sold this as a leadership feel-good conference, I wouldn't have come." But he goes, "This was a really good conference and I learned so much and I'm so excited that I was here." And he brought his team. And this conference is one where I really think it's a great executive retreat where you plan on, we're going to be hosting it in Florida. Renee and I are going to be in Florida next week, scoping out hotels for the event next April. I recommend coming out either a little bit early with your leadership team and doing the conference, or doing the conference and staying through the weekend and doing a leadership retreat with your team, because there's so much benefit in being off-site. So many times people are like, "We want to do online classes and can't you do managing for profit?" And all. Yeah, we can do some of that off-site, but what I found when people do online classes is they're not focused on what they're actually learning. I see all of them taking phone calls. I see this. "Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'll be there in just one." I'm like, you're not taking yourself out of your day-to-day to really absorb and learn so that you can apply it in your organization in a way that's effective. And so we will always, always, always have live classes and live events because we believe that being one-on-one and away from your organization is the best place to learn. And not to mention the other piece that's so valuable about what we do is the networking. So we encourage all of the members from our classes to network with each other. At our executive summit, we try to mix them up a little bit so they could network with each other. And you have this brain trust. It's almost like a giant builder group meeting where you can talk to builders in your own market, in different markets, and really get a feel for how can you be a better leader? How can you run a better business? And not just from the teacher, but from the people who are in the class. It's something I learned from my son, Charlie, when he was doing engineering at Colorado State University. He says, "Mom, I'm doing these online classes and I'm not learning anything." And I'm like, whatever. He goes, "Mom, I learn not necessarily from the teacher. I learn from how everybody else interprets the information and then we talk about it." And that's where my learning happens. And that's when I was like, what we do is so powerful because we teach and we give information, but it really gets soaked in the relationships and the discussions you have in class, during the coffee breaks, during lunch, during dinner, during the reception. So that's how you can get involved with us.
Man, there's so much. Let's unpack a bit of this. Prior to COVID, I was teaching realtors how to use their cell phones, and I was teaching them video marketing. And part of it is getting them over the fear of I'm too fat, too ugly, too hairy, anything with a two up front of it. And to do that, I needed to be with them live in a room and get them to laugh at one another. That's the first thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the magic happens when you have people around you. Maybe one's a bit further ahead, someone's a bit further behind, and each one is kind of looking up the ascension ladder. Oh, I wish I could be that guy. And then the person behind you saying, oh man, I wish I could be him. And it's when you pull them all together, and I said that's where the magic happens because people learn from one another. And again, going back to you is a tribute to what you and Brian are doing so well with the Shinn Group is you've created this atmosphere that they feel, I don't like saying safe because builders are not wimps, but the ability to be able to share openly what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
warts and all. That's
Yep.
not an easy thing to pull off. And it seems that you've been able to do that quite well.
Yeah. Well, and when you were doing your class, didn't it, like, weren't people more open to learning when they see how it's impacting each other?
There was what I would do, and I'm a bit of an asshole about this, but because I was doing a half day or a full day, right? And I
Yeah.
would come in and I would do my Michael thing, and I'm pretty high energy. I'm like a dog off the leash, and I warn people ahead of time, right? I'm off the leash, lav mic, so you don't have any time to look around, look on your phones, and play. And I would ask the first question, show of hands, who here is terrified of doing video? And three-quarters of the room would go up.
Mhm.
I said, when I say terrified to the point where given a choice to hide under your bed or be here today, who would that be? And so a smaller amount, and I would pick out one, and that would be my sacrificial lamb. So I'm unpacking during the course of the day, and then it's okay, video time. We need to do an example. And I've got my
Mhm.
phone set up on a tripod. I write out a script, a teleprompter, and I would tease
Yeah.
them about this. Here's a teleprompter. I'd hold up a piece of paper, and I would tape it below the camera. And there's my sacrificial lamb. I pulled them out of out of the crowd, and they're now outside of their comfort zone, like completely.
Mhm.
Everybody's looking at them. But the breakthrough for that individual to be able to do this in a safe place, because I'm cheering them along and people are
Yeah.
clapping and everything, you could see it's like they came out of their shell for the first time.
Mhm.
So putting this back in context of what you're doing, absolutely it needs to be live. I was hired during COVID to do Zoom calls, like at 1 hour. So prior to that, I'm doing a half day or a full day. That's all I would
Yeah.
do, or a keynote. To do a 1 hour Zoom call, Emma, I felt like I just ran a marathon. I
Mhm.
put in as much energy in a 1 hour call as I would do for an entire day, and I still
Yeah.
would have no idea that I do a good job because I can't
Mhm.
feel what I'm putting out there coming back.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say, yes, a Zoom call supplements what you're
Yes.
doing. It would be, okay, here's a Band-Aid, you're bleeding out, but it's better than nothing, maybe.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
real magic is going to be happen cheek to cheek and belly to belly.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's I think the one thing about being in person and live one-on-one is there's this energy in the room that you can't duplicate. And I mean, I always say I don't mean this that I'm selfish, but sometimes I'm like, I get more out of seeing people get that aha or make that connection in the room. Like, I don't need to be part of it. I just like to see it. So when on our last managing for profit, it was so like I was like, "This is amazing." I had a group of them all centered around one person's computer because she was showing them how she uses her, software system to do XYZ, and they were learning from each other and talking to each other, and they were, like, best friends for 3 days, and it was like it was just amazing. It made me feel like I'm doing the right thing. It was amazing to see how they made each other feel, and the whole class was like that. But that's the environment we create. We don't have classes that are bigger, like, the biggest class we'll have except for the executive summit. The executive summit's a different thing. We'll go up to 75 people with that, but we don't go bigger than that. We keep our classes no bigger than 40, and that's only if we're like, "Oh, we need to squeeze a couple people more in." Generally, they're between 35 max and 25 to 35 max because that's where the connections happen, and it's just so rewarding to see that happen in person.
You said the big event's coming up in April.
Yeah.
If people want to see your smiling face before then, is there anything between now and April?
Yes, we have our classes coming up in the fall. September 30th is our managing for profit, and then mid-October is our superintendent class, and then November is our production management class, and I will be at all 3 of those.
So break it down. Who should be on what bus?
Okay, so managing for profit is for leaders, high-level managers, and we've had superintendents come to this class, but I wouldn't recommend this is the first class for a superintendent. If you've had a superintendent that's gone to superintendent class, then and you want them to continue to have leadership training, management training, managing for profit's great for them. Managing for profit is like the big picture. This is all the departments that we're going to be putting together. These are how the departments should be working together. This department services this department, and then this department has to service. How do these departments hook together, and how do you set them up? So that's managing for profit. Superintendent training is one of the nice things about my parents having been professors is they understand that everything has to be connected. And so we teach the same philosophy, management philosophy and managing for profit as we do to superintendent, but we fine tune it for the superintendent. We talk to them about how their management style needs to be in the field, how they manage the trade partners. What does that look like? How do they manage their time? How do they manage their relationships with the purchasing department and the sales department and the customer? So we talk to them very specific about their role in the management system. And then the production manager is going to be, the managers that oversee the superintendents. And what does that look like? And how do I become a really good leader for that group? And how do I motivate them? And how do I lead them? We have a professor from the University of Denver that comes in to talk about human resources for that one. So it's a great class. Anybody could take that class, even high-level managers. I think it's a great class for them too, especially since we have Doug Allen come in for that. We'll also have scheduling for profit and art of purchasing in Atlanta. One will be in Atlanta, one will be in Denver, but those will be in the spring and January, February timeframe. And then we'll have another managing for profit and some superintendent.
They can find out all about this on your website then, I take it then.
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
shameless plug, the website would be?
Oh, theshinngroup.com. You have to say theshinngroup.com because there is somebody else that has Shinn Group and he's some realtor.
Ah, bastards. Okay.
I know. We tried to
of
get
course.
it back.
But Emma, it has to be the Shinn Group because everything
There
else
is
would be
only
just a cheap
one.
imitation. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm talking to a 6-year-old here. Let's see if I can grasp this. So you're taking builders at any state of their evolution. Let's go back to the guys that are just getting ready to scale, 0 to 10. Now they want to go 10 to 20, whatever that number is. So you're going to help them baby step them through. Here's what you need to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, maybe I'm already at the 50 to 100 range. I'm comfortable in that lane. I want to become more efficient. So you're going to take me by the hand, look at my business, and fill in the gaps of where we could be dropping the ball and where we could be more profitable. And then let me
Absolutely.
extend that one step further. I'm walking on water. I'm so good as a leader, which is not that hard in Canada because the water freezes over pretty quickly. So anybody could do that trick. But the point is, you're then going to take me and make me a better, more effective leader. Have I covered all the food groups?
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is once you're there, we help support your team. Because once you're a really good leader, you're building leaders in your organization. And we're there to support you doing that with our superintendent class, our managing for profit class, with coaching for those individual leaders that you have within your organization. So just because you have risen doesn't mean that your team is there as well. And so we're there to help support the team in addition to yourself.
Interesting point. There's a builder that I interviewed out of California. He's doing about 800 doors a year. And rewinding to when he was scaling, but everything was about him. Like he had his fingers on everything. And then he had an impromptu meeting with God because he woke up on an operating table at the hospital. He had just had a heart attack. And he said, Michael, God was literally staring me in the face and saying, young man, keep doing what you're doing. This is not going to end well for you.
No.
So he realized I have to take myself out of the equation like a good leader would, and I have to get my first general manager. I need to get a superintendent. And he started putting the pieces together so he could pull himself back out of the business and let this thing grow. The one thing that we didn't talk about here, do you help builders with the succession plan? Because like any good business, down the road, I either want to sell it, my family is going to come and take over it, or the sad reality for many, it just going to spool out of existence because I've got nothing to sell.
Yeah, yeah. And we do have one of our coaches who has worked with builders on that. How to plan for that. What are some of the things you need to be looking for? What are things that you need to be preparing for? And he's actually working with one of our builders right now on that same kind of thing. Yes.
Cool. Emma, anything that I've missed here, I can I'll steal Mike Rowe's line. I see the runway before us and the landing gears coming down. Is there anything I missed that you want to touch on?
No, I don't think so. I've had a great time having this conversation with you. I just love what builders do. I love the impact that they have on people in general. Builders of all kinds are great, but I really have a heart for the private builder and what they're doing and the impact they have on their buyers and the families that they serve and the communities that they serve in. I just hope that we can be a part of their journey and help them do more with what they have and become sustainable and continue to provide for those communities.
It's not over yet, girlfriend. Just hold your chair there for a second. We're going to do a lane change. This is kind of my
All right.
favorite part. I call it rapid fire.
All
And
right.
I'm going to give you a series of sentences. I don't want you to overthink this because I know you're
Okay.
analytical. But the first thing that pops into Emma's head, that's how you finish the sentence.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Here we go. What's the first number you look at when evaluating a builder's business?
Gross profit and direct construction cost.
Which is more dangerous, growing too fast or growing too slowly?
Hmm. I think growing too fast.
Okay. What's the most common mistake builders make that costs them money?
Not knowing their buyer.
What's one system every builder should have, but many don't?
A good purchasing system.
Okay. When I finally get that hour to myself, what I like to do the most is
I love to take my dogs for a walk on what's called the Hogback. It's a little mountain range behind my house.
very nice. A book, a movie quote that has left a lasting impression on me is
The buck stops here. It was Andy Andrews from The Traveler's Gift. And I just take that to heart because it means that I can only control what I can control and not to worry about the things that are outside of my control.
when people really get to know me, they'd be really surprised that
That I have 5 dogs in my house.
6 if you count Brian. Is that how that works?
See?
Last one, Emma. As I opened the package, I was surprised and delighted to find a
Ooh. A puppy? No.
okay, number
I
7
do
to
have
the
a
list.
17-year-old dog. I'm already starting to think, well, how do I replace him? Brian's already told me no, but it's my puppy, like the little dog. So I've got 2 big dogs. I need a little dog. And he's already
Oh
told
my
me no.
gosh.
I'll
I'm
win
I'm
that battle.
I'm gonna ask you, this is the last question, and I
Yeah.
think you can handle this. Are you a person of faith? Can
Yes.
I okay, so here's, can I ask what denomination? Does it really matter?
I'm Catholic. I
Okay,
don't go to
so
church as often as I should, but I still, yes.
okay, I may dress like a priest, but I'm not one, so no confessions here, girlfriend, but here's what I wanna ask you, and this will not happen for many, 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 emphasis on many, 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 many years. But one morning you wake up and you're dead, and you're thinking,
Mhm.
"Okay, they can't get any worse than this." And next thing you know, you're at St. Peter's Gate, and there's a whole
Mhm.
host of people behind you, and you're looking down, and you recognize some of these faces, and you're thinking, "How the heck did you get here, of all people?" And then you see St. Peter, and he's holding an iPad, and he's kinda scrolling through, and then he points right at you, Emma, and he says, "Come here." And so you're walking over, and now you're standing beside St. Peter, and what you realize, he's scrolling through video vignettes of your life.
Mhm.
This is Emma's life on the screen. And he looks at you, Emma, and he says, no, not today. Not today. There's something, Emma, that you haven't done yet. What's that something?
Mm. Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I have this vision for one day, once we get this all settled and going and doing what it's supposed to be doing. But I have a passion for dogs. I always have. So my daughter and I were talking. She's going to be a physical therapist, and we have this idea to come up with a organization called Seniors for Seniors, where we would have a shelter for senior dogs and would be close to a facility where seniors live. And the seniors can come and spend time with dogs. We would have adoption for seniors who don't want young dogs because, they're seniors and they might be way older than they can, and they don't want to have a dog outlive them. So that is something that I would like to do someday. That's what my
Very
thing is.
noble. There's an extension to that. When we were talking prior to hitting record, I was sharing with you my mom being in the nursing home. And it wasn't weekly, it was like every other week, but somebody would come with a dog.
Mhm.
And they're all gathered in, the common room. And it was like kids at Christmas, Emma, to
Mhm.
see the reaction when they pet a dog or the dog would come over and spend time with people. And it was like a gift from God to
Yeah.
watch these people light up. So humbly, I would say if you're going to build this thing, and I wish you do, consider adding that as one more avenue. You'll have such an impact.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Emma, anything that I've missed that you want to add? This has been a lot of fun. I really
It
appreciate you
was a lot
taking
of
time
fun.
out. So, one more opportunity to do a shameless plug. They want to find out more about you. Where do they go?
Oh, well, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can always visit our website and learn all about us from there
And that
at
website is again?
theshinngroup.com. And we also have builder partnerships, which I didn't talk about at all, which we have our rebate program through there. But you can find us on builderpartnerships with an S.com or theshinngroup.com.
And we'll put all those links in the show notes that will correspond this interview. Again, Emma, thank you so much. Give Brian a big wet kiss from me because it's only
I
appropriate
will.
having dogs. And let's just leave it as to be continued.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you, Michael.
Thanks for listening to Builder Straight Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. Until next time, keep building smarter. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.